So thank you all for joining the first podcast for the M3DS Academy. I'm very happy here that our first guest is JC, because back in 2000, I think we did our first conference for the M3Con, and now it's a pleasure to have him here and share his story. So also, besides me is Simon, who is the head of education and games. And today we're going to have some, I think productive conversation about the industry, where is it going, and how we are going to adapt to it. So I will leave to JC to introduce himself, and from there we can start with Simon.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Super cool to be back here. It's been, 2019 is 5 years ago. So yeah, when Stefan asked to come back for the podcast, it was an immediate yes, for sure. And then we have a little bonus guest as well, which made it a double yes. So you'll get more of that later. But yeah, it's super great to be back. In case you don't know, I work at DreamWorks Animation. How much of an intro do we want to hear?
Yeah,
it can be pretty extensive. Yeah.
Could you try? I know you have questions to ask me. I don't know what the questions are yet. We'll see. This is impromptu. This is definitely a impromptu interview, so that'd be good. How much interview do you want? Intro.
Yeah, you can introduce yourself pretty well.
My name is JC.
Yeah,
that's enough. Everybody knows everything else.
You started in Sony ImageWorks, so you have a very long career. We met back in 2017, me and you in Italy. Yep. And from there, our relationship went and started. And I'm very glad to be attending some of the conference, the View conference there, and to meet with you. And from there, definitely you gave me like an inspiration to start the M3 conference. But definitely we would like to hear your story, how you started, how you get into the industry. You have worked almost for 20 years. And definitely there is so much, like, I would say there was 2D, then there was 3D, now it's AI. So we are adapting, but the other industries are not closing, but definitely maybe those tools will improve our work environment. But mostly, definitely, we would like to hear the beginning and present.
All right. It all started on a farm in 1971 when my mother had a child. So I grew up on a farm kid. My dad was a farmer. My grandparents were farmers. Everybody was farmers. And so I went to college to become a doctor. This was jumping way ahead from kid on a farm. Went through school, nothing special through there, just normal high school, junior high. Then went to college for pre-med to be a doctor. I was pretty good at science and those kind of things. What do they call that now? STEM. This whole STEM thing was science, technology. What's the E stand for? In M. Something. And M for something. So I had a pretty heavy science background, so I thought being a doctor would be good. But then when I got to college, they said it'd be about 10 years before you could get a job. So I said, I don't want to do it that long. That's a little too long. So I changed. I got a job. So this is where things in your life that happen can change your path completely. I got a job on campus changing light bulbs. So that was, you need money in college. So I just got a job on campus. And the job is go around the dormitory and change the light bulb. And then that's all. And then my manager said, oh, you changed light bulbs pretty good. Let's teach you the next level. So then he taught me how to change the ballast, which is inside the fluorescent light. Then eventually we're doing stadium lights for the campus, and it just kept getting more and more electronics. And then I asked my professor, what kind of job requires using this knowledge? I like doing this, the hands-on. And he said, oh, that would be an engineer. So I said, okay, I'm going to change to engineering. So I had to go to a different school because they didn't have engineering at that school. And that was a Biola University where Dexter is going to be going as well. But yeah, for engineering, I had to go somewhere else. So then I got my electrical engineering degree at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is in California. So engineering degree, and my first job out of college was a robotic engineer, which it was a field engineer, which meant we had robotic systems for semiconductor and automotive, and we would install those around the world, whether it's Asia, Europe, wherever the robots were installed. I had to go with it to install it, train the engineers how to use it, the machines, and then come back home. So a lot of travel, and that was a fun job. I did that for 8 years. At the time, so my wife, she's a writer, and we made an indie film. In between being a robotic engineer, I kind of produced and edited her indie film. It was just something she wanted to do, so I said, let's make a movie. Did you know this part?
No, I didn't know that one.
Exclusive.
Exclusive information. Yeah, we made a feature. When digital video came out and Macs came out with Final Cut Pro, we bought a new Mac.
Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut Pro version 1.
Oh, wow.
We bought version 1, Final Cut Pro. This is an old guy story, but you buy a 75 gigabyte hard drive for $1,000. This was like, wow, and fill the drive up with that. And yeah, we did a feature length comedy. And then she convinced me to get into the entertainment industry instead of robotics. She said, come join me in the entertainment industry with the same skills, use technical skills, either editing or something. So then I found a job with Sony ImageWorks, which the first job I ever did was render wrangler. So it's a...
How did you usually find a job in Sony? How do you do that?
Well, I did have a friend. So I went to a conference. So going to conferences is key. I went to a conference. A friend and I went to a conference. He was in the same position as me. He actually went to the same college. We got the robotic job. He really wanted to do entertainment. So we went to a conference, and somebody from Sony, a recruiter, was talking about the different roles in the studio, and they said, if you're really technical, maybe you could be a render wrangler. So he applied right away because he was done with robotics. So he applied, and he got the job. So I kept in touch with him. Then I had an interview, and I actually failed the interview. I failed the interview in 1 minute. So
why?
So
World record.
because they thought because I know the same stuff he does, it should be the same. So the within 1 minute, they asked one question that they said, how much Python do you know? Was it Python? Perl. At the time, it was Perl. Python, same old stuff. So he said, how much Perl do you know? I said, I actually don't know Perl, but I know C++ and C. They said, oh, sorry, we need Perl. I was like, it can't be that hard. It's a language, right?
It's the same.
It's the same. So one of the guys in the interview, he said, I think you would be good. I'm going to send you the test. They do a test. He said, I'm going to send you the test that we use and send it back to me tomorrow, and I'll see if I can get them to look at it anyway. So he sent me a test which had a bunch of Perl problems. So I had to go to the bookstore. This is before internet. I had to go to the bookstore, buy a book on Perl, read it like crazy, and then go through and stay up all night, answer these questions, send it back. And he said, that was great.
Yeah, definitely it was much easier back into the day, I would suppose. How did you find the book?
Oh, Barnes & Noble, just a bookstore. You mean the...
Yeah.
How did I... we had lots of bookstores nearby, so they had the book handy. So now I did submit it, and he said, good job, that's what we need, but you're 1 day too late now, we already filled the position. So I had to go back to my robotic job for a whole nother year before they called me back to come in for that year. So
Whole year.
a whole year hoping, just waiting and waiting for that phone call of, you're in. So yeah, it was a long...
But you waited or forgot about that?
No, I waited. I kept in touch, maybe every couple months, send an email and ask, hey, how's it going? And they're like, oh, nothing yet. So it's like a lot of people right now, waiting for phone calls. But yeah, I just kept in touch and kept the relationship with that guy, the guy who, that's 20 years ago, right?
Probably something
20,
like that.
from 2002, 22 years ago.
Yeah, almost 23.
That guy who was the one who sent me that test overnight, I still keep in touch with him.
Wow, nice.
Just because I think over that year, it was more about I mean, he was definitely helping me, but I liked him. So it was kind of cool just to have a friend who did it as well and just keep in touch. And I mean, there wasn't really any expectation. After 6 months, you kind of just assume you're not going to get a job. But I kept in touch with him anyway because he was cool. And he's in the industry I liked. But then eventually that came around. And, we haven't been in touch all the time. But just to say the people that you have a casual interaction with, you may still be in touch with 22 years later. So it's, yeah. As you go around through life, you have these random interactions with people, and you think, like when we met, I was at a conference at a booth with hundreds of kids coming by getting demo reviews.
Me as well.
and Stefan was one of the many people. We had a nice chat, and it was good. I didn't know at that time I would be here however many years later, 7 years later, or that I'd come to the conference, the GamesCon, and it's just started from talking to somebody who came by that we had a nice conversation, and you never know where those will lead. It's such a, like, when you look back on things, you realize the history and it makes sense. But at the time, who knows who I'm going to meet in the lobby tonight that I'll be talking to in 7 years at a conference. It's just such a random, as you're building relationships with people, you never know where they'll go.
Yeah, it's casual.
I want to know, and this may be I know it's a long time ago, and it's very interesting because probably none of the people in the audience, or maybe even those who will be watching this video, what is the first 3D software that you've used?
Oh, for me it was Maya. I
Really?
think, yeah. I think it was Autodesk even. I don't know, or Alias Wavefront. I think they called it Alias Wavefront when I first started using it.
First, I think it was Alias, yeah, and then Autodesk bought it. Yeah, it's really weird as well. Like when we see people talking about Maya, I think it was 94 or something like that, or 96 maybe, when Maya was released, and Blender was released at the same time. I mean, it's maybe 2 years later or something like that, but it didn't become popular until two or three years ago. So your first software was actually Maya.
Unless for 3D software.
Yeah, 3D.
I mean, editing before that with Final Cut.
Yeah.
Final Cut.
That's my first editing.
Yep.
So do you use it until this day? Is it
Maya?
this?
Yeah, I had to rig a character before I came here for one of the shows we're doing. I'm not an artist on a show per se, ever. My primary role is supporting all the artists. So as a trainer, I teach them anything that they may need to know for their job. Now we hire a lot of smart artists, so it's not like I'm the super artist and they are all my, the little people that I'm raising up. They know way more than me. So at a studio, and same at Sony before I went to DreamWorks, a lot of the software is proprietary, or we have our own workflow and pipeline. And so the need is not so much to teach them their job. Say we hire a modeler. I don't teach somebody how to model. I don't teach them Maya. What I teach them is our plugins that we made for Maya in our studio only. So our workflow within the studio. So I have to know enough of what they do, of modeling and general Maya and our software. But once I show them, within 2 weeks, they're already way past what I know. They're off and running. So I'm kind of the starter for everybody. Get them into the studio.
That was as well with Moonray, right?
Moonray,
as well, yeah. Right now it's open source, they released it, and everybody can test it out. But I imagine when new people came into the studio, okay, this is Moonray, this is what you need to do, but they still know how to work with lights, they still know composition and everything, but it's just the onboarding process on, okay, this is how we do things. Yeah. That's usually as well what we do with students. We try to not teach them explicitly what to do, but how to get around things and figure things out on your own and stuff like that.
But basically he's very humble, but he has helped many people in his career. So when we were in the States, in New Orleans, so many people welcomed you, and also when I see on the internet, on LinkedIn, that you have huge respect from the industry. So it's not just a starter, I think, because you have teach much more than that. But thank you for being humble, I will say, definitely. Because there is an extra spark there.
Also, you do teach now, right? You are a mentor at...
Oh, yeah. So I think So I think my passion, what I do out of just that's what I do, is help people learn software. So whether it's at DreamWorks, because that's my full-time job. So I teach at DreamWorks, and that's mostly to artists, studio artists who, like I mentioned, need our pipeline. I also teach at 3 other places right now. I teach at Biola University, which is where I went to become pre-med, and now they have a film program, and I teach at the film program at Biola. I also teach at Art Center in Pasadena, which is a kind of a worldwide known school, a lot of automotive and design, so it's a really famous one for that. But they also have concept art and animation, so I teach there. That's, speaking of Blender, that's where I learned Blender, because I was teaching Maya for a few years there, and the dean or the chair, somebody said, you know what, the kids really want to learn Blender, and the term starts in 2 months, so can you switch to Blender? So I went to SIGGRAPH that year, and the Tone, the head of SIGGRAPH, led a meeting, and I stood up and I said, does anybody know how to learn Blender? I need to learn it in 2 months because I have to teach it really quick. And so he told people, talk to that guy, everybody tell him your best trick. So, and software, once you learn one, they're kind of similar, so it wasn't that bad.
Definitely.
But I was the same. I didn't know Blender hardly at all until 2 years ago. So now I teach Blender, and then I also teach Unreal for the same school. And where else do I teach? Oh, there's another school in Hollywood called Studio Art, so I teach Unreal there as well. So that's just on the side, a little this, little that.
And you also teach at M3DS Academy.
That's right.
Yeah. We'll share it afterwards, like all the information and stuff. But JC did tailor a course for us for filmmaking in Unreal Engine.
Master class.
Yeah, master class. Even though you were a little bit shy about calling it a master class, but it is a master class. Like
For beginners, it's a master
yeah,
class.
I would consider it as a master class, learning from someone with like 20 plus years of experience. It doesn't matter if you have like...
Even so, some of our colleagues took it home to learn it, so...
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So speaking of Unreal, let's say, what do you think about it, and how do you think it impacts the industry, and how much do you see it in the industry at the moment, and all of those things?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely not going anywhere. Unreal is really handy for its real time, the feedback you can get. I think where it's yet to be fully tapped is in the early part. Most people are thinking about making a film, or the final pixels, and of course for games. But for filmmaking, the critique often is it still looks like a game, which is true. It's a game engine, so you're not going to make a DreamWorks level movie with.
Yeah, there's still like that Unreal look that people say that when they see something from Unreal, it's like, okay, yeah,
Flickering, something like that.
I can see that this was made in Unreal.
Yeah, it's for a final pixel relative to a movie like a Sony, a DreamWorks, a Pixar. It's not meant for that per se, but for
definitely.
using it in the pipeline for studios that are learning to harness that power, because it's really just another tool. If they can find ways to use that tool to make their iterations and learn faster of what direction to take the movie, because that's where, when you get near the end of the movie and you make a change, that costs a lot of money. If you can make that change earlier, then you save more. You still cost money, but you save money because you found the new direction faster. So the more a tool like that can help you visualize earlier in the process, and you can hook in the mocap to it, and you can have directors. There's a really cool YouTube on there's a YouTube video on a film or a show called Super Killer Brother Robots or something like that.
Yeah,
a super giant brother robots, robot brothers.
Like that. Yeah, I know, I've seen it.
So, and it's really good about talking how the director and the writer and the actors, and they can be there on a mocap stage, kind of making the movie in Unreal on the fly, and they can see what it's going to look like, and they can make changes, and they have the cinematographer there changing camera angles, and they're going back and changing the script because they can, because they're right there making it, and it's very collaborative and less of a factory that you sometimes find in bigger studios. So I think that was a fascinating model to watch. I think that would be a fun way to get involved, to have studios get more involved doing things like that.
Yeah, also like the stuff for like Mandalorian and the real time, the real time backgrounds and everything with the big LED walls and stuff, like just amazing that you can just like change a couple of things on the fly, and like it's all real time, so you can change it whatever you want.
I will definitely say it's like being like a promotional now for real time. But previous was when we used Unreal on our previous, it was very nice, and everybody who's speaking to the industry is definitely there. But it will be nice, like if we can, like. My question was like, when you finish the production, let's say in Unreal, can you post-composite it later, like fix those bugs and something like that? So what's your opinion on that side? Because yes, we do have real-time rendering,
Right.
and we're going to see so many bugs, maybe sometimes with the trees or something like that, but we can always post-composite it or something like that.
Yeah, I think somebody who's a traditional lighter or compositor, they don't think it's good enough for what they need, because they're used to 80 render passes, right? You got 5 passes for every light, and they can fix everything in the comp, and that's the world they're used to, and Unreal doesn't really support that workflow. So, and even, there's certain parts of it. It's getting better. I know they want to make it more universal, but even an animator, if you take a Maya animator who's been animating in Maya for years, and you show them the tools in Unreal, they'll be like, it's okay, but I need my tools. They're just a little more professional level. Now, that said, Epic did hire so at DreamWorks, we have a proprietary animation software called Primo, which is like the best. All the animators love using Primo because it's actually a real-time animation tool as well, only at DreamWorks. And one of our product owners who had been at, I think, DreamWorks 20 years, Epic hired them. So
Nice.
just say, hey, can you what your animators like about your tool? Can we put that in?
What you just did? Yeah, do it
do
again.
that over here.
Just for us.
Yeah.
Even though they did with Autodesk Maya, the animation and rigor, and a lot of like Python and riggers they took from Autodesk. So we definitely see where that will be going. But you mentioned that softwares are tools, just tools. Like you have to learn them, and after that, it's just a tool. So that's a very good statement, because so far, previously we have looked to softwares like they're like mandatory, but definitely you can shift and work in other softwares. But what's your opinion about some artists like starting into the industry? Because as we teach into the M3DS Academy, the tools are very hard for them because they're starting to learn them, and like it's a challenge. But what do you have a message for them, like for the start?
If you're just starting out, what would be a good motivator? I mean, you do have to like it. I think that's an initial step. And some people may not. They think they might, and then they get into it, and they may be like, I don't know if I like. You got to connect with any of the tools, and not all tools are the same, as you know. There's a painting tool, there's sculpting tools, there's editing tools. So there's different, you connect with different tools differently, I think. So to try as many of the tools you can, and when you find one you just like to work with, then go in that direction. For example, like I'm not really a modeler, or, I mean, what else am I not? Like sculpting in ZBrush, it's just, I haven't done it, and it's just not an area where I feel pulled. But editing, I love editing, and I love working with Unreal, just the real-time feedback. As a non-artist, I like it because you can kind of cheat and pretend you're an artist. You can
definitely cheat a lot of things in Unreal.
Yeah, you can like grab some mocap. I'm an animator. Grab some ultra-dynamic sky. I'm a lighter, and you just throw a scene together, and you can make a movie. I'm not saying it's a good movie, but you can get to the end of a movie or a short, and you can make it yourself. And you can feel that sense of accomplishment. So for me, I like working, like on a weekend, if you find yourself working with a tool, even without an assignment, without a job, and you just like doing it, then go in that direction. So as students are learning new tools, to try as many as they can to find what one do I like? Because you can't know all of them for sure. And
Definitely.
I definitely know that for sure. You just got to draw a limit. There's another tool, Houdini. I don't know how common Houdini is, but that's a different way of thinking.
Common,
It's a really different way of working, but some people really connect with that, especially if you used to work at NASA or a space laboratory.
Yes.
So it's very scientific driven.
The only guy I know The only guy that enjoys Houdini is Nicola.
Nicola.
It's Nicola.
I see his posts all the
Yeah.
time, but he's connected with that, right? Like he gets it. And for most people, that's nuts. So
I think it's just like a small fear of nodes. Like people just see a big node graph and they're just like, okay, never mind, just scrap that. We don't do that.
In multiplayer for Unreal, it's not
Yeah.
the same. It's same.
I mean, like the same, for me, it's like the same thing. If you just figure out how to do node graphs, like for me personally, I work a lot with Blueprints, and that's a node-based system as well. I haven't still tried Houdini. I downloaded it once and I tried playing around with it, but it's like 5 hours of work. But
It's
the
like
sa-
5 hours and you just
just 5 hours of just moving stuff around, and I still couldn't do anything.
he's still trying to make a box after 5
Still,
hours.
still trying to right click and find like, okay, now what I need. But it's the same thing. I think if I go, for me personally, if I go into Houdini, it's still just a node-based system. You just have to learn the nodes. There's a very cool software. I don't know if you've used it or you've heard of it, but Embergen as well.
Definitely heard it. I've seen a lot of people on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
it's very cool. It's still a node-based system. It's very similar to Unreal's nodes, but it does extremely good like smoke and fluid simulations in real time. Like I was playing around with it yesterday, and it had like 20 million voxels rendering at 60 frames per second with all kinds of flames and fumes and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely like if you know one thing, I think you can translate it pretty easily into different softwares.
Yeah, that's a good point of, like you said, you were just playing with it. I think that's the advice too, is if you find yourself playing with it, just keep playing with it. Because it's just go in that direction. And some things are hard to learn and you have to do it. But if it's just not coming natural, like me, I do not play basketball. You know why? Because I don't know how to play basketball and I'm not good at basketball. So I'm probably never going to play basketball. It's just not my thing. So the same with software. If there's one you're trying and it's just not working, just skip it. You don't have to do it.
Yeah, so everybody also hates playing UVs, red topology, and something like
Yeah,
that.
That's true. I think that's the one. Most of the artists, I'm sure you want to talk about AI eventually, which I don't know a lot
I
about.
would
But
like them to take over that side.
that's what I was going to say. Most artists are fine. They don't want AI to take over their job. But if it takes over UV layout, okay, you can have that. So that's the compromise. They'll give it that one.
Yeah, but the weird thing as well is like, even if it takes, let's say, auto retopology and stuff like that, we've had zero measure for like what 10 years now, and it's like people don't think about it. Like zero measure is still some sort of AI that's been going on for like 10 years, and everybody just likes to use it. But now you just push that word, and it's like, okay, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. But everything, like 50% of the stuff that we do in 3D, like all of the computations and everything, it is the same thing behind the scenes. It's just like the name just has like a stigma behind it.
I mean, I guess Ultimate in a way is as well for Nuke.
Yeah.
It's just
But from
If you just click automatic in Maya, it's still an AI that does the job for you behind the scenes, but you just don't take a look at it like that.
But I think because we have 8 years of experience for teaching, like we have seen students like learn 3D and everything else, and they had a passion for it. But since they got a job and afterwards they stop like learning, I will say. That's most interesting that you have take up upon like a role to learn Unreal Engine. I know how hard it is to learn the retargeting and everything else, and also your son Dexter to jump on also on those technologies. But what I've seen is like afterwards they stop learning. So what is your like advice for that? Because Nicola also has a presentation just for that. Like I learned Houdini, I take over the kids and everything else. But what's your advice?
I mean, I think I pull from my own motivation is, I mean, it's tough because my job is to have knowledge to share for other people. So I've got to go get the knowledge somewhere myself first so I can share it with other people. So for me, it's a little pressure of, I always got to try and stay ahead of the trends and know about all the different software that's out there. But for people getting in the work, I think the one tough thing about the industry is people who would say they're artistic, they may not be able to be that artistic in their job because you're depending on what the role is or what studio, you might in a way just be a factory worker in not, that doesn't sound nice per se, but it's a truth of it's not your creative vision that you're making. For a few people, director, it's their vision and it's the writer's vision. You're there to help the rest of the process happen. And there's creative moments where people get to try something out. But I think for somebody who's really an artist and they get into the industry, if you're just doing what your job is, you might be discouraged because you're not getting that artistic person of you out. So a lot of friends that are at the studio, they have their outside artistic interests, and that's where their passion goes, because you can't just rely on what your day-to-day job is, and it also depends on what the project is. Some might end up on a movie that you're like, it pays my bills, but not that interested in it. So it's hard to get motivated to stay on the edge of that technology that you need for your job. So yeah, how to push yourself outside. I think finding what everybody else thinks is cool and trying to learn those things. I think Embergen is a perfect example of, I've seen people on LinkedIn. Maybe that's the thing. First, get on LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely.
And because everybody does show and tell on LinkedIn, and you get inspired by what people do and these cool new tools.
It's the new Facebook.
Yeah, the new, but minus the bad part of Facebook. But the seeing what everybody is working on can be inspiring, and you just see new tools out there. Now, here's my little secret. The reason I know so much software is because it's my job to know so much software. And so the reason I got into training, to jump back a while, so I was doing the render farm for 2 years at Sony. I was gonna actually become a lighter on Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, a movie long time ago, but the schedule changed. And that's the other thing everybody's probably heard, but get used to changes. Things change all the time. So the person who is at the time, she was the head of training at the studio. I said, I was going to go into lighting. And she said, well, you're just going to have to wait. Or are you interested in training? Well, let me back up. She said, what do you like? What do you think you like about lighting? And I go, well, I don't know. It's technical, and I'm technical, so I think I could probably do something like that. And she said, but like, not even what do you like to do when you're here? I go, well, I like to talk to people. I actually don't like the idea of sitting in a little room by myself in the dark for at that time, it was maybe 60 hours a week.
Working on lighting without lights.
Yeah, I said, I don't like that idea. I'd really rather work 40 hours like a normal person. And so then, and I said, I like learning things all the time. I don't want to just do the same software all the time. I like interacting with people. I like variety. And she said, don't be a lighter. You're not going to be happy.
That's the complete opposite of it.
And she said, why don't you join our training department? And I said, I don't know any of the software. She goes, well, you learn it, then you teach it. I was like, really? That's all?
That's all?
What do you know? So that was the motivator to get into training. And because it's my job to learn it, it helps push me. I mean, I get paid to learn things.
This is Sony, correct?
Yeah, that's at Sony. And then I got into that and did that for, minus the render farm, 12 years. 14 years total at Sony. And then went over to DreamWorks when my former boss, so that's another lesson, keep good relations with your bosses, because when they go to another location, they may call you and say, do you want to come to this place? I took the job at DreamWorks mainly because it was closer to my house. I mean, I'm fine. Like, DreamWorks is great. Sony was great. They're both great studios. But it was getting, from my house to Sony, it was getting to be 90 minutes commute each way.
Each way.
So 90 minutes, and kids and family, it's like, oh, this is killing me. So when my boss, who had gone to DreamWorks a year before, called and said, do you want to come work here? Same job. I said, oh yeah. Like, I took the job with one text, like, done, I'm in. So it was only, with no traffic, it's 12 minutes. Ooh. So I got a little bit of my life back. It was nice.
Yeah, that's less than I travel in here in Skopje, and the US is like, I don't know, 100 times bigger. Everything is just like 100 times bigger there.
If here the drive is more than 25 minutes, it's a panic because we're not used to like long drives.
Oh, 90 minutes would kill you, huh?
90 minutes is like more than half of the country. Like,
He'd be in Bulgaria. In 90
yeah,
minutes.
it's like if you drive for 90 minutes, you will probably get from one end to the other.
Yeah, at the border you're going to be.
Yeah.
And that was like stop, go, with stick shift with a manual.
Yeah.
It gets old. So yeah, but I'm happy I made the change. DreamWorks is great. I didn't know much about it. I didn't know they had free breakfast and free lunch. That's nice.
That's always nice, yeah.
And they have cafes out and outdoor and a lake and a river. It's nice. It's a good place. So
Would you ever considering like not quitting, but like pursuing an not indie, but your own stuff? Like maybe in a couple of years, just like settle down. Okay, I don't want to work at DreamWorks. I don't want to work at a big company. I just want to sit at home, do my own things. And I know there's a difference between like losing those amenities, like free food and everything like that. But
He has a passion, but mainly the question is in, let's say, for example, in 3D or site.
it doesn't matter. Like whatever
start
you
my
want
own
to do. Yeah.
thing. Well, the funny thing is, so what's today? The 5th. In 5 days, I take my final exams for my MBA, which is a Master's of Business and Administration.
Nice.
Which, would lean towards that question of like, now that you know a little bit about business, it's continual learning, right? So just working on that. No, I would never work for myself. I have no interest at all.
I was thinking that I was going to hear some like a motivational story and a startup moment, but
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, always pursue everything. No.
I think, I think I'm fine. Well, so part of that program, the business program, and this is a real job that I had never heard, not a job, a trait, a character that I had never heard of before. But one of the classes, it's interesting you asked that because one of the courses was on entrepreneurship, and they have you take a test and to determine how much of an entrepreneur are you. And my score was really high, like top score for am I an entrepreneur? Do I have the personality? But I don't want to start my own business. I mean, we did the movie, so that was kind of your own business of sorts, and we had a little corporation for a while, but it's just not my strength per se. So, but I asked the professor, why did I rank high, but I have no interest in starting a business? How does that work? He said, oh, you are, here's a new word for you. Here's a new word for me. You're an intrapreneur. An intrapreneur. So entrepreneur, you start your own business like you. Intrapreneur is you have that skill set, but you do it within a nice, safe, large corporation. So I treat my job at work as an entrepreneur. I'm always, I cross lines into other people's jobs if I see something. Oh, that could be a little better. I have an idea. Let's do this over here. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And I go outside my lane quite a bit, but only to help and to try and from an entrepreneurial spirit of we could do things more efficiently and we could do things a little bit better. And so because the company allows me that freedom to do that, then it's a win-win. I'm happy to be an entrepreneur
definitely.
inside a company.
oh, that's nice. That's a very good thing because from there definitely you will not have any pressure. Definitely the company will grow, and together from that side definitely both you will have a benefit. But starting a business is very easy, and you should
I don't know if that's true.
yeah, it's true, maybe it's other
Yeah, but
place.
it's also like a roll of the dice. Like I've seen people like totally flop at it, but for me it's like almost like 50-50. Either they go all the way and it works very well, or either it just doesn't work and you just have to go back to your day job. And also another thing that I wanted to also ask you, but also say, like something that you mentioned previously as well, like this is still just a job. Do you treat like your position like just a job? But it's not just a job, but at the end of the day, it's still your job to like train and to teach. Do you think of that way, or just like a career or something like that?
That's a good question. Definitely not just a job.
Under pressure.
I know.
Under pressure.
I know. I think I'm motivated by people saying you did a good job. So anywhere that I see I can make an improvement. I can help someone. I can, I mean, me naturally, I like helping. I'll probably call you later and teach you Houdini. So that's just the way I am. When somebody says, I need to learn Houdini. Let's arrange a Zoom. I'll show you how to use Houdini. A little bit. I'm not that pro, but enough. Just, that's just, I answer my YouTube comments. I don't get paid anymore, but it's just something in me of, I like helping people, but there is a line that you can cross that's bad, that it's more of a people pleasing. You get a rush from people saying thank you, which is weird, but I think there can be an unhealthy point to that as well, that you're motivated because you feel good by people appreciating what you do, which is good, but you do have to have boundaries. Like, you can't do it so much that you don't see your family, your kids, your other things that don't say thank you all the time. I mean, actually, I get told thank you at home all the time, but
I would hope so.
yeah. But I mean, it's an interesting question. It's definitely not just a job. It is passion's maybe a little strong of a word. I mean, at the end, it is a job, but I like it.
If you wouldn't be paid, like you wouldn't be doing this. Like,
oh, good point. If I wasn't paid, no, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, definitely. Like that.
Although I would do something similar. We had that conversation before about what would I do if I didn't need any money. But I had to work. I got to do something.
Yeah.
I'd probably be a mechanic. And the irony is, I'm going to learn someday that mechanics make more than what I do anyway, and I should have just been a mechanic 20 years ago. And then I would have done my passion and made more money. But I don't know if that's true.
I mean, it's very weird for that as well. Like, even like when I started out, like I had my friends who were working like customer support or something like that, and at the time they were making like 2 times as much money as I did. And I was like, okay, but why would I do 3D? And a very cool point of that is also career path, because I do think the film and the game industry have a very strong career path. Like customer support, you can't, like, you do the same thing for like 20 years if you stay in that industry. But like you said, you started out with what did you say was your first position? Like,
render watch.
Yeah, and now you're like director of training, so you have like miles up to walk up. I'm not gonna say the corporate ladder, but
yeah, you have a path. There's a ladder to climb, and so that's true. There is some growth potential that's in there. Knowing what I know in our particular location, I actually like where I'm at. I'm at a good spot on my ladder. Anything more, and then I need that MBA too much.
Do you like to go higher?
I had an interview with another entertainment company, which shall be unnamed, but it's a big 1-letter name anyway.
It's classified sensor.
Yeah, it's classified. A while back, and it was for a head of training position.
Way back. Uh-huh.
Not that long ago. Okay. Maybe a year ago. Oh, a year ago? When was that, Dex? Maybe 2 years ago. Maybe 2 years ago. And talking, through it, I said, so just to get it straight, I'll be running the department, but also doing the training, because that's what I do now. I run the department, and we have a couple other trainers, but I train all the time. They said, no, you'll hire trainers. And I said, no, that's not, I can't do that. That's
you're just going to be a recruiter.
It's HR, yeah.
Or even, that you're managing the team that is doing the training, but my passion is doing the training, like being with the people, teaching them and having them go, oh, I get it. Seeing the people just learn is where I get the this is fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Just managing for me I couldn't do that. So
yeah, it's the same feeling. Like a couple of days ago, like we have students who are just starting out, like they are 2 to 3 weeks into 3D, and I just click a bunch of things, and they're like,
magic.
What the hell did you just did?
Magic.
Yeah, it's just like magic, and I suppose people will realize that it's not that much magic.
You like that.
It's like a good feeling that you get, and they're like, "Are you a magician? Are you a magician?" But no, it's like for us, especially for you, like a couple of the things that you do are like not simple for you, but it's everyday tasks. I suppose, like, have you had many moments like that when you train new people and you show them like new software, and they're like, well, I will never learn this. Like, what is this? How do they overcome that barrier?
I think because a lot of the students, it's new for them.
Yeah.
I've had a student one time, this is a few years back, I don't think anybody's at that, but teaching a Maya class at another school in Hollywood, Noman, which is a school in Hollywood. I had a student at the very beginning, first class, and I'm talking about how to use the, tumble around. And I said, okay, go ahead and right click.
I know this story.
You know this one? So I said, yeah, go ahead and right click. And she said, what? I said, right click, right click. She, what do you mean? Click the right side of the mouse. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a long class. But
This is the actual beginning.
that was the beginning. But she made it, and watching her get through it was fascinating too. I think a lot of the challenge I like is understanding, and this part's pretty key to be a good educator. Everybody's different and has a different way of learning, and you have to judge on the fly. You can't do the same method for everybody. That it's like what you guys do with that mentorship and the hands-on. You can't just give everybody the same content and the same explanations, because it doesn't work the same for everybody. So finding each person's individual way of communicating, way of learning and understanding is a good challenge for yourself as well. You're like, I broke the code. It's like you're a code breaker, figuring out.
You decipher another guy's mind. Like how do they work? How do they want to study?
Yeah, that's why we hate like classes, like 3-hour classes. Previously it was like that, and everybody was dying at it. It was like I was saying, so it's the same as an university or a high school. We didn't do anything different. We just copied the old system. So we did something differently now. But I'm glad that you have pointed out, because everybody, we try to treat differently, because somebody is a fast learner, somebody is a slow learner. So from your experience, what's the difference? Like, how do you see a student like potentially winning at the end? Because everybody is starting at the beginning, somebody is faster, like I said. In the
Right.
we
Totally.
have a saying in the academy, in the first 6 months to 12 months, we don't care if you're good or bad.
Yeah, everyone will be different for sure and has different skills. So yeah, how do you help each person succeed at different levels? I have noticed what's tough is there's a lot of there's good competition and bad competition. When people compare themselves, it can motivate certain people, but it can also like depress other people and have them
Yeah, definitely.
and have them feel, how am I going to get that good? So it's kind of a tough one, but I think a lot of, just helping them understand you're a different person. It's fine. That person who's way better either naturally might be, or they've had 5 years experience at home learning before they even got to the school, and they had a head start. It's kind of like golf. So we've been talking about golf. You can play golf with other people, but it's really a one-person game. It's about you hitting the ball to the hole. Other people may do it, and you may, bet with them or something, but you can only improve yourself. It's not a team sport, and you almost can't even look at art as a team sport in a way when it comes to what you're producing. So helping people understand and encouraging them at their pace, at their level of speed that they're able to work. Right now I have some students, I'm doing one-on-one with them, and they're not totally different levels, but quite different. And I even have to keep myself in check not to
Overstep something with different students.
Like asking the slower one, like, come on, catch up to everybody else, because they may not be able to. It's just the way it is, that people are a little different. And that gets harder when you have a lot of students. But for them, if you can understand and speak their language and learn their pace.
So we're speaking live classes, correct?
Live, in this particular case, or Zoom, but yeah, one-on-one.
Yeah, it's like classes, like if they miss a class, it's... So if somebody misses a class, what do you do?
I tell people at the beginning of the term, they can't miss a class. Now, that doesn't mean somebody doesn't get sick or something, but I said I don't do recordings. Like, there's no makeup. You can't schedule time with me later to catch up. I don't have that kind of time. So I almost don't have a problem with people missing, because I tell them they can't. So that kind of helps. And at work, people have to come to, that's their job, so they have to come to class. Not to say people don't miss a class, and if they fall behind, I'll try to help them, or I will send them a video of something I know that is easy enough to follow to catch up. But it really is that they can't get that time back, so it is kind of tough. I really just usually encourage them, you got to come to class. Even if you're sick, put a mask on. I don't care. Like, come to class. You got to get that one-on-one, because you can learn. I mean, I got a YouTube channel. It's a one-way conversation for sure. Video-based learning is popular, but if somebody's paying for a one-on-one class, they should take advantage of the one-on-one aspect and be able to follow up with that. And then the other thing, I think a lot of definition of a success is defined by your job, or if you get a job after school. And that's, getting a job is mostly out of your control. It's, you can apply, you can have a good reel, you can have a good resume. You may be the best person for the job, but you still may not get the job because things aren't totally in your control. So if somebody is depressed because they can't get a job, it still may not be their skill that's keeping them from getting a job. And there's a lot of unemployment right now in California. Yeah. Tons of people are out of work right now. And you see a lot of posts for people just encouraging, like, just keep going. It's not you, it's the system. Just wait.
But the whole industry is like one of the best, like in figure, I will say, because it's very large. The gaming, the film, the whole entertainment industry, it's much bigger than everything else. So it's from your opinion, why is that?
Why is it slow, or why are people let go, or why is it big? Let's see. I think just trends. There still may be some. This is me guessing. There still may be some fallout from everybody ramped up during COVID to lots of content, lots of games, lots of streaming, and everybody was buying content and selling content. And now afterwards, back in school, back to work, the amount of people maybe spending on games or streaming services is dipped. So then, and the models are changing, and everybody's just kind of on hold. So it's just not, the market is kind of in a lull. Maybe with games, they're just not making as much as they thought they would make. I'm not as much in the game side to know, but tons of people in games are let go right now. I don't know what's driving that, other than you must not need all those people for that. They must be reducing what their content, they're just not making as many games perhaps.
I'm pretty sure it's like the AAA games are like toning down a lot, and people do tend to like indie games. At least in the most recent years, like indie games have gone way up in comparison to like AAA.
And indie studios, correct?
Yeah, and indie studios are like popping up like every day. There's like a new indie studio, and I also think like the big corporations, like there's one game I don't know the name right now, but they called it like quadruple A title or something like that, and they were like, this is gonna be the best game ever, and it like flopped very hard. And maybe that's why like it's going into a little dip right now.
Everybody's backing off.
Yeah. And also, like you said, like there are people with like 20 years of experience who just got fired from their position. Like if you're a student who just graduated, like how can you compete with that?
Oh, that's a hard one for sure. Yeah, the prospects of, I guess
changing light bulbs, maybe.
In a way, because in a way, entertainment as a whole, there's more people who want to do it than needs are to do it. Your supply and demand of there's going to be more people to apply for a role than you need, right? Like if you put out a position, I need an animator, you have 20, 30, 100 people could animate. And so your supply and demand is a little off. So if you were going into that field and that's what you really wanted to do, you just need to know there may be a time you have to do something else while you're waiting to get the other job. Maybe it's changing light bulbs. Maybe it's, in LA, the common thing is all the actors, they do a waiter and waitress job, right? So
like the Big Bang Theory, yeah. So yeah, the other one.
And that's true. It's not just on TV. That's a true thing. People have to have another job while they're waiting for the perfect job to come along, and you never know when that'll happen. So having just a job to pay the bills while waiting for your good job to come through that you really want kind of going to have to get used to that because it's just,
Yeah, that's
just
also
the way it
what's.
is.
I had a couple of students who like graduated and they're like, okay, now I can't find a job, like, but it will eventually come. Like in the meantime, if you need to do anything else, like we have to work. Like you can't live off of just air.
It's easier for freelance or something like that than
Yeah.
somebody like maybe with 20 years of experience and getting fired. So they have a difficult time finding a job. But for the youngsters, it's much easier for freelancing. But let's say, for example, it doesn't matter if they have a perfect portfolio. So what do you recommend? Because you have been director of training, you've seen, I think, quite a lot show reels. But if somebody creates a good portfolio, what stands out for the rest of the crew, or sorry, the crowd, and about maybe creating a game or creating a short or full movie. So what's your suggestion so they can stand out?
Definitely targeting the company that you're applying to, in the sense of if you're applying to a DreamWorks for a position, then your reel should look like a DreamWorks movie and not have any games on it, because you may know how to do that, but DreamWorks doesn't care if you can do games, because that's not what we do. And
that's an Easter egg. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an Easter egg.
So it's matching, knowing what they already, so doing your research, knowing what they already do, and then preparing your demo reel for that role specifically, showing just that. And, you know, if that isn't that much stuff, you know, maybe you could add a little other, you know, you don't want it to be more than, you don't want it to be 5 seconds because that's all you got, but putting the best stuff first, and also trying to customize your reel for each position. You know, like people do resumes, you change your resume a little bit for what company, I mean, people should, what company you're going to apply to say what your experience is that's more useful for that company. So you got to do the same with your portfolio and demo reel, is really target for that company. If you're putting stuff online, it's a little more, I mean, you're just publicly being out there. But maybe the link that you put for your application, you make a page already of just that content, so that, you know, they land on that page first. So you're just really hitting them with the idea like, oh, you can help us make what we need because I see it right here. That looks like our stuff. Oh, you'll be a perfect fit. So I think that's pretty key. And personality is huge. You know, when you interview with people, friendly, smiley, full of energy, not needing to own, you know, that they owe you a favor, like you should hire me because I'm so good. It's like you want to be able to tell them that, but not that directly. Yeah. You know, you want them to want to hire you because they think you're nice and friendly and would do well.
Also, I wanted to ask, like, how important it is not to be a jack of all trades, but to know a bunch of different things. I mean, you should, I mean, at least in my perspective, you should specialize in one thing. But is it important to know a lot of things, a little bit, and then just focus on one thing, or just try to not do everything, but you get the point?
It depends where you want to go. If you want to work at a big studio, you're going to do one thing likely, and for a long time. Unless, because even where I am...
How long is long?
I mean, our animators, they just want to animate, but 20 years animating, and they're not going to do anything else. They don't want to. They want to animate Poe or whatever our characters are, Shrek or someone, Dragon. What's your Toothless?
Toothless, you know, yeah.
You know, and they've, you know, that's all they want to do is animate DreamWorks characters. So they've specialized, and all of our other artists, whether Sony or Pixar or Disney, DreamWorks, usually the department you're in that's your department. Because you're so good at it, they want you to do that for the next movie and the next movie. And if you say, oh, can I do lighting instead of animation? They'll say, well, we need you to animate, and we have lighters who are already better than you, so probably not. You know, you just end up specializing. Now, if you're in a small studio or commercial work, you know, you might be the person modeling all the way to compositing. So depending on your target industry will kind of help define what you do as well.
And what you like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that now coming out of school, everybody's a generalist usually, because you learn a little bit of everything because you don't know what you want yet. You got to see definitely everything. It's like you got to test drive all the different disciplines to see, oh, I like this one. And then you can pick one to specialize, maybe later on in your path. But, you know, knowing it will make you more valuable if you can cross over as needed, like say a lighter does need a model from a Maya file and the modeler's already gone for the night. If they know how to open it up, output it, send the file over and open it themselves, then that's really useful and that's known to be a good skill to have. So when it comes time for promotion or when it comes time to cut people, they'll know, oh, well.
That's probably the more important part when they cut off
very,
people.
when there's cuts coming, and it's not always based on what you know, but the more useful you are for the company, the better chance you'll make the cut. So having the ability to cross over into other departments and help them out or understand and work with a neighboring department will add value as well to the bigger picture of the production.
So it depends on the culture as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've only been at 2 places myself, so
but 2 places for a very long time.
a long time
Big places.
and big places. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a machine. Everybody, there's schedules for each block, almost like automotive manufacturing. I mean, that's me saying I'm not artsy, so I'm not painting a good picture of the process, but just saying the idea of it's a workflow of data. A pipeline, you're moving data from A to B. So this artist to this artist to this artist, and tight schedules, and you have deadlines to hit. So it's like a machine that you're making a nice Mercedes or something.
Yeah, we talked about what you should do, and the question is opposite now. What you don't want the HR or the director or your supervisor to see when
what you shouldn't do.
shouldn't do in the company and before and also when applying.
I think the easiest way to get fired is not take direction well. If your supervisor is, recommending that you need to make a change for your shot and you contradict, and there's a little level of let's talk about this and maybe we can come to I have a good idea, but then there's direct I don't agree and I'm not going to do it. You're out. You're not.
Definitely.
That's the quick thing not to do. I think at least where I've worked, they haven't been very competitive among everybody's helping each other, and there's not a strong sense of I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing because it's my secret and I can go faster. If I learn a trick, I'll show everybody else because it's a team. And that part, it's a team. We all need to get across the finish line together and alive, and so we'll all help each other as
and
much
employed as well.
Employed, and we got to get across the deadlines. So being a team player, well, that goes against not being a team player. So answering what don't do, don't not be a team player. No.
Yeah.
I had too many negatives. So too individual. Because you really are meeting somebody else's vision, so you need to be able to do that and do it well, and at the end of the day, know that you're being paid for what they're asking you to do, and accept that. And if you have your own ideas, then go make your own movie. That's almost that's
you take the risk. But when somebody is taking the risk and creating their own movie or something like that, so these days it's much easier because everything is public and you can go viral and you can have a luck. But what was the traditional way before, doing the steps for promotion and also promoting your game or film? Mostly you have seen how the production is also fighting for seats at the cinema for screen time. So do you have any recommendation on that side? I know it's off your field, but you have been to the large companies and maybe you have seen something.
So which part in particular? The
when you take on your own game, creating your own game or your own film, indie. And definitely there is more indie studios now for games and films, but I think somebody will appreciate your advice for that.
You know what I would recommend is partnering with someone. So usually the creative people in life, like my wife, she's a writer and she's not a promoter. I think a lot of artists, because of an artist character is not a trumpet of their skill. They're, and maybe not all, but somebody who's really good at the art really needs someone to work with, to be the marketing, the publicity, to somebody who's sales, and just realize you can't do all of it yourself. Even if it's not a single person, a program or a company or someone to help you get it out there, because of the distribution. That's a whole art itself, dealing with sales, distribution, publicity. I mean, at DreamWorks, we have people that is their job: publicity, sales, marketing, and they're very specialized in that, and they know that business. So for somebody developing something and you want to get it out there and you don't know how to get it out there, it's easier to just find somebody who does know that whole system already and those people and those connections than trying to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and figure that part out yourself. You know, it'd be a lot harder to understand.
How to promote your first 3D modeler or first game, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have access, or money access, almost the same. Or there's people. I mean, we have at Biola where I teach, we have a department or what do you call that? A discipline. We have VFX, we have animation. What do you call that? My English
field or something.
A concentration.
Yeah.
So in Biola, we have a concentration for film production, and there's a lot of schools now that teach film production. They're not artists, but they want to be involved in film. They need a job too. So you have PAs, people ready to be a PA, and partnering with somebody who's in their beginning role at that world, and you at the beginning of your world, partnering with them and say, let's do this together. I'll make the content, and you get it out there, and let's do it. Because if you're doing it yourself and they took 4 years to get that knowledge, so find somebody in the same boat and grab arms and let's go.
Yeah, that's one thing as well. Like, you need money is access, like you said, but also connections is like access. Like, if you know certain people who it's very good when people like you, because they sometimes they will do stuff for free sometimes. So that's basically access as well.
Yeah, it's as good as money.
Yes,
time is as good as money.
It's just as good as money. A couple more questions. Not so much about the industry, but I do want to know what's your favorite movie at the moment that's out, and something that you're currently anticipating to come out.
Let's see. The favorite one that's out is probably Dune. You think, Dexter? Probably Dune.
Yeah.
So we just saw.
I have a separate question for him as well.
Okay.
The same.
He'll
question.
have a different question. He'll maybe have a different answer. But I think Dune, in that we don't usually go to. I mean, we don't go to a lot of movies outside, especially not.
You have a cinema at DreamWorks.
Oh yeah, true. We have that. We do.
That's right.
And we do get to go to all our movies for free. A big family event. So we do DreamWorks movies for sure. We go to those. But the idea of going, maybe like a giant Marvel movie we went to, but we don't go a lot. But we decided for Dune 2, Part 2 or whatever, to go see it in IMAX.
Yeah.
And that was almost like watching a movie in a VR headset. Like, the experience of the sound and the visuals and just the story was, I walked out of the theater still shaking from adrenaline. I was just like,
For Dune, right?
Huh?
For Dune? Or?
For Dune 2, yeah. It was just like, wow, that was crazy. It was just so epic, and in IMAX. And I probably would recommend people see it as big a screen. Don't watch it on the plane. You won't be very impressed watching it on your phone.
On your phone during your fly.
Something like that. And those are movies that I think really need to be in the cinema. Like, you can't stream that on Netflix. It's just.
Yeah, it's the same, because with new technologies, definitely it was like Lord of the Rings, like starting out. So that's the new era now.
Yeah, you got to go big.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'd say that's probably my most recent movie experience that I thought was amazing. That I tell other people.
Yeah.
I even told my dad, I'm like, Dad, you got to go see. You got to go see it in theaters. I don't think he did, but I tried.
So what's your favorite movie?
I've been saying for the past couple of years that Into the Spider-Verse was like the thing, because it was the first movie in, like, I don't know, I'm not that old, so I haven't seen all of the movies previously, but since I've started watching movies, like, for me it was the first movie that did something different than everything else. I mean, like I said yesterday as well, like, one of my favorite movies is How to Train Your Dragon. I have a tattoo of that, and I like Kung Fu Panda is like also one of my favorite movies of all time. But if I would have to pick one, I would say Into the Spider-Verse would be my favorite.
My problem with Into the Spider-Verse was I left 1 year before that movie came out, so I didn't get my name in the credits. I was like, oh, that would have been awesome, because that was an amazing
But
movie.
did you have any contact like on the movie? Did you train people for the movie?
Yeah, at that time I was working on the animation side, so the early development, seeing the
Nice.
early direction and some of the, just the original ideas and early on. And then I left because they had a different director starting the movie, and then they changed to another director. So I was there during that exchange, and just seeing the different ideas go through was really fascinating. Watching the first pitch on that movie was a shot of him jumping off the building backwards or forwards, whichever way it was. And that was the first thing they used to sell the idea of the movie to the studio. And just seeing that for the first time was like, oh my gosh, we got to make this movie. It would be amazing. And I'm glad they did, because it looked so good. I just wish they did it a year earlier so I could get my name at the very bottom. Oh well.
I mean, they should put your name on it because
I
you did
did
work on it.
We're at early days, so it's fine.
Would you say you have like a good gut feeling, like if something is good, like in the very early stages, like in the earliest stages, like you see something and you think of, oh yeah, this is definitely gonna be a hit.
Yeah, both ways actually. There's I've seen
I know the bad ones.
I'm like, oh, okay. We have at our house, it's basically we have a little film school. So I'm not a part of the home film school. I go to bed at 10:30. And then after I go to bed, my wife and the kids do film school. They watch movies and they talk about character development, character growth, story, plot points, things that make sense, things that don't. So they've influenced me now to watch movies with that in mind as well. And so I can go to a movie, watch it, and know what the kids are going to think, because we talk about it so much.
That's very cool.
So we'll go and I'll watch it and go, I can't take them. They're going to complain the whole time. So, but it's good to have that dialogue at home, to just have those conversations, because, everything's a story in life, and movies are just a story. So, what are the good stories? If you're going to spend 2 hours on a film, you want to make sure it's a good story.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And one thing you mentioned earlier about the industry, which, it'll always be here. So my wife was saying there's two industries, even in the worst of the depression, there's two industries that you will still have that are strong. Even stronger in a depression is cosmetics, because people want to look good, and entertainment, because people want to feel good. So even in the worst of times, you'll still have those. They're not going to go away, because people just want to look good and feel good.
And one industry as well, food, because it's like
Gotta eat.
the same thing that we talked before. Like if you can't find a job at the moment in the industry, like the food industry is always they're always gonna be hiring someone just to get by until you get not the perfect spot. Like that as well. Like, would you recommend for someone, let's say, trying to break into the industry, to wait for that not perfect but very good spot, or just try to take almost anything just to break through into the industry?
Because everybody will be stuck at that place.
It's a tough one, because once you do get a foot in the door, like we hire interns at DreamWorks. We hire interns for 10 weeks. And often at the end of the internship, if people like them, they'll try to find them a role, the next step. So they have a foot in the door, maybe being an intern for a department that's not where they really want to be. When you're an intern, you're just doing, for a lot of our interns, you're not doing artistic. A lot of artistic intern, you're doing production. Maybe you're helping with party planning, or they just need help. So the studio just needs people.
You bring coffees to the executives.
Almost that level, but not quite that. But in that idea, you're not doing your dream as an intern, but your foot is in the door. You can see what everybody else in the studio does. You have access. So that's probably the key, is access, that you don't have if you're waiting for the right job. And it depends on the location. Some place they'll hire you and they just, stay there, don't move. And at other places, if you're someone they like and they need help somewhere else, and you look willing to, like, I don't know it, but I'll try, on the particular opportunity, they might have you try it. And anybody who's eager, people want eager to learn employees. So they want people who will do anything. So if somebody has that attitude, like, sure, I'll try, and even if you don't fail too bad, they'll that's just that the attitude is what they really want
a lot of people can do the same job in a way. Like I always say modeling because that's the beginning of the workflow. There's a lot of people who can model things, and a lot of people can light, and there's a lot to choose from out there. But you're with these people 8+ hours a day. You want to like them and like working with them and go outside and drink coffee together. And you almost live your life with the people you work with more than people at home, other than weekends, right? So you spend a lot of people, especially a work environment at a studio. The person next to you is next to you all day, every day. So you want to like the people that are around you, which means you have to be a likable person too. So I think getting your foot in the door, becoming a likable person, helping any way you can. That's pretty much how I just help people. In the end, that's my job. I help people. So just helping people with whatever they need, and they're going to want you to stay there, and they might invest in you to say like, what would you like to do? Not always, but sometimes somebody will take you under their wing like a mentor and just kind of help raise you up.
So you heard a lot about thank you, but have you said thank you to anybody like often?
My bosses, actually, my direct boss, and then the same boss who got me the job at DreamWorks. She's now at a different company, and I keep in touch with her. And once a year, I probably say, I have you to thank for this amazing job. So, thanking people who have gotten me to different experiences, thanking you for getting me here twice now. I think always, we have Mother's and Father's Day, so always thanking my parents for letting me do, paying my college, everything all the way through, and helping me whenever I needed help with anything. I still call my mom for baking instructions. I'm like, how much flour for milk for, pancakes? So they're always helping. So who else? I try to thank people. I think that's part of, because I need to learn, like I mentioned before, I need to learn things all the time. So I'm asking people questions quite a bit. And I guess probably most of my emails end with thank you. I'm not a overly over the top emotional person, so I won't do any big events per se with somebody about it. Because growing up on a farm, generally farmers are pretty low key conversation wise. But it's when I think of it, I try to remember, because I think there's often an assumption people make, of course they know I'm thankful, but if you don't say it, they don't know.
Yeah, sure, because you have helped so many people also connect, and also helped the M3DS Academy, especially me, with connecting other people. So thank you.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
I think we're good for now.
I will definitely say about the masterclass. So we're going to point out to the masterclass will be starting out in Unreal Engine. So it's a masterclass because on the YouTube channel, how many views have you got for the how to start in Unreal?
So I have a particular video that I think has a third of a million. What is that? 333,000 or 350,000 or something like that.
So it's a masterclass.
Yeah, that one people like that one. Get started in Unreal Engine.
So we're going to do, we did a masterclass, and it's going to be out, and everybody that was joining will get it for free. And I think that's all. I would like to hear what the audience has to say. So we will continue with the Q&A.
Yeah. One round of applause for JC before we continue.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions for JC, we have behind.
One more
and
there.
Also on the other side as well later.
What do you think about remote work? Especially for me, I was a visual effects artist for over 7 years at the studio right here. But what if we want to find work, let's say at DreamWorks or Sony, directly, not as an outsourcing studio? Are there any remote artists working at those studios from your experience? I mean, you have lots of experience in this industry, of course, not only at those studios, but your friends and colleagues, of course. Is anyone working remotely, or are all those artists in-house? And is there maybe an opportunity for lots of people, here in the room, of course, that like movies, that like games, to work directly to those studios Also, for your students, do any of your students work remotely, or are they all in-house artists? Thank you.
Answering the second part first, so the Unreal class I teach for my Art Center class, that's an online class. Online with lots of screen share, because they're not in the same city. They're usually in California, but they're not right in the same room. But I do require them to share their screen if they're stuck, and I make sure they're keeping up. So it has a personal touch with it. But the idea of artists, I think, of course, COVID made a big bad mark on the world, but it did make a good mark to prove the fact you could have artists work remotely, and everybody had to for 2 years, and it worked. We made movies. Some things weren't as ideal. There's certain groups that really work better when they're in the same room brainstorming. Like story artists, they got to talk to each other and pitch ideas and draw pictures. But, there's certain parts of the pipeline, when you look in the studio, a lot of folks, when we were first coming back to the studio, early days, people would come in, but nobody was there, so they would just go back home and keep working. So it took a while for come on, everybody, let's go. And there are people now that they're just fully remote. They've chosen, we have some union issues on the artist side. We have a artist union. So that took a little while to navigate. What does that mean? If you live in LA, but you don't come into the studio, are you still in the union, or what's the boundary? So I don't know all the particulars, but I know that played a part in it. But yeah, we have remote direct employees per country. I think there's different situations. I don't know. That's big HR recruiting type issues as far as what countries can and can't hire from in particular. But I think COVID helped totally open up the world, not just for outsourced, but remote employees. They're often shorter term. I don't think they're hired as a full-time staff for the long run, but it's not unheard of for people to just work remotely. So I think in that sense, if you're better now than before COVID at finding those opportunities. Thank you.
Yeah. I think we had a couple of questions on that side, if anybody can pass over the mic.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Follow-up.
Hi, and thank you as well. Whether at Sony or at DreamWorks now, is there a project that you can pinpoint as your favorite, and why would it be that project?
Past tense or future? Or any? Any. It's funny, when I came to DreamWorks, I hadn't seen all their movies yet. So I was luckily that wasn't on the interview. Which DreamWorks movie is your favorite? I'm which ones have I seen? I didn't realize we made so many movies at DreamWorks. There's so many movies that are underrated. I think probably Megamind is the out of left field. When we watched it, we're how come I've never heard of this movie before? This movie is so good. So Megamind is the sleeper hit for our family that just snuck up on it. And then definitely the classics of because it's, we watch all those as a family. So I think our family favorites are Dragons for sure, Kung Fu Panda trilogy. There's one coming up that I have a trailer to show you all that I got approval from DreamWorks to bring a trailer for a movie that's coming up that looks like it's going to be really good. Just from you said the gut, does your gut have something?
Yeah.
I don't know that much about the movie, even though I work there, you'd think I would know more, but just because I'm teaching them, I'm not working on it. And from what you see as well, I think you're going to all be oh, that movie's going to be so good. So that'll be a little later.
Yeah, our site is good.
Yeah. I had that little tingle in the stomach. Okay, this is going to be good.
Yeah, and then I think we have a TV division as well for series, and one of our family favorites is Penguins, the Penguins show. That one's pretty funny. And and King Julian. Always got to go back to King Julian. I don't know if you guys get that here, but King Julian's hilarious. So that's a good one too. We like comedy, so.
Yeah, I just recently learned he was played by Sacha Baron Cohen.
King Julian?
Yeah. It was that's another thing as well. I forgot to ask how many times you get surprised by Jack Black and people like that just come into the studio.
Not where I kind of sit in the basement, so I don't see a lot of people. Actually, ironically, I sit in the basement right above where they do come in. So I'm in one floor underground. There, the sound studio is 2 floors right under me, but there's secret stairs that go back. So they'll come around. And actually, Jack Black and Aquafina were on this campus not long ago with all the animators at the end of
I
Kung
think
Fu Panda.
there was like news of that. I saw it.
Yeah, hanging out. A lot of the big artists, they have their own record studio and they send stuff over. So they don't always come on site for all the records, but they do. But there is a secret back entrance with a secret parking spots, and they come direct down to the record.
I would imagine like if Jack Black walked in the studio, like half the people would just faint and stuff like that.
It might be unexpected. They might take a look of like, wait, was that Jack Black? I mean, if they know he's filming, they'd probably expect it. But I don't know if I would expect it or register.
Yeah.
I'd probably say that guy looks like Jack Black. Oh, it is. What do you know?
And do you have a favorite voice actor?
He should go to him and say that are you a Jack Black?
Are you the real Jack Black?
Yeah. He'd probably say yes. He seems cool.
Yes, and they will not believe him. So
My favorite voice actor at work is probably Tom McGrath. He's the voice of the Dex. What's his in Penguins? What's his thing? Skipper.
Oh,
So he's
Skipper, yeah, Penguins of Matter, yeah.
Yeah, and he's also a director. He directed the Madagascar movies and Boss Baby. He directed that.
Yeah.
So his voice of Skipper is just I do an event sometimes with him where we bring people into the studio, and he will go to the record room and he'll do a demo and he'll do his voice. He'll do his Skipper voice and just talk about it. And it's so fun to hear because I'm like, you're right there and you're being Skipper. That's so cool. So yeah, he's my favorite voice.
Nice.
That's cool.
Any more questions?
yeah,
A
right.
couple more.
I have one question. What's your opinion about studios like are running out of ideas to make movies? Because I personally don't watch a lot of movies, but when I watch, I saw like everything that can happen in a movie, like 20 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a tough one. Living in my house with all the story-focused people, it's tough. Yeah, I think what's going to happen is you're not going to find as many bad movies. Well, not in theaters, because the cost is so high to make a movie that if it's not amazing, then they're going to lose a lot of money. So I hope that's what it means, because the theater market's totally different now, and they don't make nearly as much money as they used to. So you hope that means they're going to really develop it and really make things unique, so that that people just really want to watch it. Now, with the streaming now, that is another outlet that people have, and there's a lot of success. It's harder to measure the streaming because you don't have box office. So you're like, I don't know. You're just up to Netflix will tell you if it did good or not, but you don't know if that's true, or you don't know how to verify that. If everybody at work is talking about it, then it's probably pretty good. But as far as how to get better content, that's a tough one, because also the big studios with a franchise, you already have a name. Kung Fu Panda just came out, and just by making a Kung Fu Panda movie, they're going to get a lot of money because everybody likes the first three. So
They have to milk it. So.
I didn't say that.
I said that.
Any studio, if they have a success, they're going to do it again. If you have a way to make money and you have the opportunity, you'll do it again. Let's do it again.
Why shouldn't you? Like, if
Totally,
people
it is a business.
Have you heard about Fast and Furious, something like that?
Maybe a couple dozen parts.
They're up to 10.
They're
Right?
on the moon now.
Yeah, I think they drove to the moon or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, there's probably a certain point where it's just like, okay, it still does make money, but it's like obsolete. Like, I don't get some of those movies, like Fast and Furious, for example. Like, it's definitely gone on for way too long.
It's not a movie, I think. So.
Yeah, they're making like everything, probably like series, action figures, like they milk everything.
Actually, I think we do the TV series. I think there's a cartoon version that DreamWorks did. Does that ring a...
I'm not really
Is that
sure.
true,
Dexter?
It is
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
Okay. So yeah.
This is true.
So I know I got to ask.
Is your son working at DreamWorks as well?
I just don't follow everything we do. But when you mention, I'm like, wait a minute, there is a series. That's right.
Yeah.
I think they're done for now. But it goes to that idea of a business is looking for a way to monetize their property. So the intellectual property is the key. Like
Yeah, the IP is very important.
So if there's a way the movies are getting old, let's do a cartoon version and get kids interested, and then let's try, maybe another reboot of the movie that's cartoon instead of anime or live action. So like if you have something that might make money, that's a easier gamble because in the end it's a business. So the business folks are like, well, let's try and make good movies because that would make people come, but they'll also come if they already know the name. So that is a
Yeah, the IP.
what's the answer?
Yeah, I want to plug this just a little bit. And we had a very good friend of ours from Dublin, right? Mitrov.
Yes.
Yeah, he had a talk last year. Yeah, last year on building an IP and how he, like over the course of maybe 10 years, built his own IP. And just last year, I think they actually started making it into a movie. So yeah, that's a nice talk. You should listen to that as well.
Yeah, the good. I was just having a talk recently with somebody about where did all the indie movies go?
Yeah.
You get all the big budget movies, you see those, and even on say Netflix, those are still kind of big budget movies.
Yeah, that was my question previously. So how they can get into the industry, because we haven't seen so many indie like movies previously. Even the European movies, everything was in European. Yeah. So now we haven't seen anything like on the screen at all. Like
short Easter egg. I was in one Netflix movie as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how do people get exposure and
that
get stuff out
industry,
there?
like, it's a good question. Like we haven't seen at all, maybe non-indie movies, but that's why was my question previously. Like, how do they get into the industry? Why they're not there yet? Because the European market was like very good at the times, but now it's like almost dead, I will say. Or maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know if I have any qualification to answer that one. Why don't we? I miss them.
Maybe Dexter has.
Yeah, he might know. I mean, the good and bad thing about something like YouTube is you do have a channel for getting your content out, even though it's flooded with a bunch of other people and it might be good or bad. But when we made our independent film feature in 2000, I think, year 2000, if we didn't sell it, nobody can see it. Like if we didn't get any buyer for television or feature or a company to take it and distribute it, there was no YouTube then. We couldn't put it, unless we gave somebody a DVD and said, you want to watch this? There was no, so we still have a feature at home sitting on a shelf that nobody's seen. Now you might say, why don't you put it on YouTube? That's good. That is a good point.
Yeah, you just thought of that, right?
I may dust it off. I may not do YouTube because we still not owe money. If in a good way, we have a lot of contracts that if we sell it, we owe people money. Really? So because the actors, the way they work for a low budget movie is they'll do it for free if you make money, they get paid later.
With the residuals,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So, which means I don't want to just put it on YouTube because it probably won't make any money. So I still want to maybe distribute it eventually, but that's on my list. I got a long list of things to do. That's not on the top, but someday.
Maybe the bug.
Yeah, after or before?
I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions?
Yes, in the middle.
Two more right there.
In the middle?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll cover both questions, don't worry.
It seems like the Western animation industry has completely moved away from studio animation. Why is that? Does studio animation still have potential to stand on its own?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I've heard it's no cheaper to do 3D than 2D. So I've heard that it's not a cost thing, that it costs just as much to do 3D as it does 2D. So it's not a financial factor. A friend of mine works in, where's Paris? That way somewhere. So over there.
In the near vicinity.
So a friend of mine, she works on the Blue Eye Samurai. She produced that one, and I think she's the one who was telling me it's not a cheaper thing. It's just there wasn't really a good reason why the market or the buyers or in the end people have to go to it. So maybe the recent ones that have been made weren't getting the box office that was needed, therefore they don't make more because unless it's super independent, it's all about making the cash. Although I think, what did we do that was, I mean, we did, a long time ago, DreamWorks did,
Fantastic 2D movies.
yeah, the 2D
Yeah.
movies. Do we have, we don't have any now, do we? No. Well, even if I did, I couldn't say. but I'm trying to think if we've done any. We do some motion graphics work, which is kind of 2D as transitions in Kung Fu Panda 4.
Yeah.
But that's not what you mean as a 2D movie for sure. Yeah, that is a good question. I'm going to take that back and ask my bosses. Why don't we do 2D?
Well, also
Because it's much easier for production.
yeah, probably. But also like a very hard transition is if you've already had an IP that is in 2D. There was a couple of movies that tried to transition it into 3D, and it's just not it. If you start out in 2D, at least for me.
Actually, we did one. We did a movie, Captain Underpants, which was 2D book, but I think it was a 3D. Was it 3D? Cut that part out. I don't know. I can't remember. But that's the trouble. Like a super cartoony movie can be 3D content, but it looks so toon style that you can't remember if it was 2D or 3D. I can't remember if it must have been 3D. I'm thinking, but it looks very flat, very 2D like.
Yeah, same like Into the Spider-Verse. At least for me, it has that very 2D look, but it's entirely. I mean, it's not entirely in 3D. They do like hand-drawn smears and stuff like that, but the majority of it.
But I
is
like
still
the
3D.
combination to the.
Yeah, that's very cool. Like the comic book style and like the freeze frames and all that stuff is very cool as well.
I think Miyazaki is keeping 2D going.
Yeah.
He's holding on. He's like, let's keep making more 2D movies. That's
Yeah.
the only one offhand I can think of.
Okay.
How much time do you think a student should spend learning and working on projects without being too overwhelming, but also being efficient and not too little?
Infinite also.
Yeah, it depends on the student and depends on their situation in a way. I mean, we have a similar discussion recently of, where was that? Was that with us? Where did we talk about you got to know when to stop? What is good enough? Who just said that? I was like,
Oh yeah.
I think we talked about like there is a certain point where
At our meeting.
there's a
Nick.
certain point where if you just push it, it's no good. Like
no return.
yeah.
Return on investment.
Yeah,
it might get better, but it's so small. The amount of time you put in, the amount it gets better.
Definitely.
And the idea of finishing something and moving to the next thing, I think, is more important. If you have time to get that's the tough part, though, is defining what's good enough. Because you could spend infinite amount of time making something better, but where is it not worth making more time to make it better? So rather than polishing and never finishing, to just say, okay, that's good. Maybe I'll come back later and just go to another piece and another, or whether you're doing modeling or hand drawing or whatever, just keep more and more content. And now time-wise, I think whatever's healthy and as much as you would want. If you're not having fun anymore, then maybe, or if you haven't seen the sun for a few days, then probably like, all right, I got to go out. It's definitely a balance, because the problem with computer work is you can just sit there for 8 hours straight and work. And I'm the last person who should say what you should do, because I would say you should go ride your mountain bike, you should go outside, get some exercise. I don't do that either. I want to do that more, so I don't have a healthy balance myself, because my excuse is I have too much to do. So you really have to self-discipline. Make sure you eat better. That's I know lots of software. That's a big plus. My big minus, I could eat better and I could exercise more. And
I think that's generally for all
world.
all of us in this industry. I think that's pretty common for everyone.
Computer users.
Yeah, really. Because it's like another thing that I say is like an exponential curve. If you take a look at how a project is developing, it's always like an exponential curve. Like you're never gonna get that 100%. there hasn't been one project ever that has gotten to that. 100%.
Maybe 90% is the deal. Because
Yeah, I say like when you get 95% of the time, like, okay, it's there. Like if you want to push it, sure, go ahead. If you feel like working on it, but if you don't feel like working on it, you just circle back and forth.
the other 10% is the same as the 90%.
Yeah, the final 10% is the same time as the first 90%.
And it's tough when you're doing it on your own because you don't have a monetary, you're not costing someone money because eventually the person paying you will say that's good enough. But when it's yourself, you don't have your own limit. You don't have someone telling you, stop, you've gone over budget. So in the real world of working on a movie, there's somebody who'll say, no, it needs to be done by tonight. I don't care how much better you think you can make it. It's due at 6 o'clock, the end. Yeah. Like but pencils down.
If it is your movie, it's your child, so you'll never stop working on it. So I definitely know people work on movies and
Too
also
much.
art. And definitely, personally, I was like a hard surface artist and I didn't want to stop working on something. So if it is your personal project, never end working on it. But if it's something like a portfolio and that you wanted to put it out so you can get a job, so you finish it like in 90%, something like that.
That's good.
Yeah, and a very good advice that you said earlier, like tailor it. If you're putting it out to target something, just tailor it to that studio or to that, I don't know, game studio, whatever it is. Just try to think like them. Yeah, I think that's all. One more round of applause for JC, and I'd like to thank you for coming here. We have a very special guest as well now, coming right after you. We're gonna have a small break, 10-15 minutes.
Before the break, hold on just a second.
Yeah, of course.
2 seconds. Hold on, I need a flashlight. Just a second.
Yeah. His wife told him to take pictures of.
Oh no, I got something else. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, I gotta find something here.
Okay, this is not scripted, by the way. Like we have zero clue.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it
Yeah,
out
I'm trying to
myself.
figure it out as well.
None of it's scripted.
Yeah, none of this was all scripted. Like.
All right, just a little
Yeah, I know
something.
that.
Okay.
Just a little something I brought from home.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned you like that franchise there. So
Kung Fu Panda tote bag.
So
Wait,
this
there's
would be good
something
for
heavy.
the school maybe or to have around. So it's just our latest Trolls movie, The Art of Book.
I still have the bag.
The dragon?
The DreamWorks bag.
Yeah, the first sticker that he gave me when I started working was a DreamWorks sticker. I think you gave it to him and he gave it to me, and it's still on my work computer from like 3 years ago. It's still sticking around there. But thank you for the gifts. These are very nice. Thank you very
Yours
much.
is a little bento box. I don't know if you guys. It's more like a little lunch box.
It's a lunchbox, yeah.
Yeah, a little Kung Fu Panda 4 lunchbox. So just like what do we call swag? A little swag. You bring from,
I'm gonna be the
DreamWorks
coolest
for you.
one at work now.
So then, so we were done. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, JC, as well.